Good morning and a very warm welcome to all. On behalf of Parentcircle, I would like to welcome you to this online debate. My name is Rex Fernando. I am the moderator for today's debate. All right. I'd like to just give you a little bit of a background to the reason why we are having this debate. In one of our meetings that we came to know that a major concern what parents have is connecting with their children with today's world. Now, the online debate is another reason why we have come up is that through our interactions with parents, we find that they find it very, very difficult to deal with the situation of managing children online social platform and how do we go about with that. And very often they believe that the best way to kind of manage it or their concerns of handling it is to kind of come with some very strong restrictions. But for children on the teens, the other way around, it is the way of life. Now we wanted to bring both the stakeholders together for them to understand each other's perspective, and that's why we brought in this particular debate. And today's topic that we would be having is parents should set limits and controls on their teens, social media, and screen time. Now, that is the topic. And we have two teams today. The team which is proposing the controls on teens is Team Parents, and the team which is opposing our topic today is Team Teens. And I would like to kind of introduce very, very quickly our teams that we have. In Team Parents, we have Rupa from Bengaluru, we have Alpa Tana from Mumbai, we have Prasad from Hyderabad, and we have Krishna Maharaja from Chennai. And in Team Teens, we have Ananya from Chennai, we have Arya from Chennai, we have Vidur from Chennai, and we have Toshini from Delhi. Now, I would also like to introduce our expert that we have in the midst, Ms. Arundhati Swami, who's our head parent engagement program in Parentcircle. I would like to call upon Team Parents.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Rupa, and I'm a mom to two kids. In this pandemic situation, our usage of gadgets has gone up. Everybody is on gadgets. Parents are working from home, and we are ordering groceries on, on our laptops and phones, and we have been using too much of all this. And teens are dependent on gadgets for their education, for college admissions, for their exams. We don't have a problem with that. The word we say restrict your usage only when they are on social media, while they are chit-chatting with their friends or they're playing online games. This is when we say only don't use too much of what were you using, the laptop or phones or whatever. And then after sunset, we also want to restrict using our gadgets after sunset, because it's definitely not good for our eyesight, and it can lead to too much of anything is bad, and too much of usage of all this screen time is going to be a big problem, because we can see even in news they are saying the mental illness and most of the too much of screen time can cause migraines and eyesight problems and mental issues. So this is why we, and anybody in authority, a person in authority should set rules always, and it will always work. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much for your point there, Rupa. I would like to call upon the next speaker, Mr. Raja.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Let me start by using a specific word that's very, very important for all teens: freedom. If there is one thing that teens are looking for is freedom. Freedom of choice, freedom of how they spend their time, freedom of who they want to become, what they want to buy, who they want to interact. So freedom in various facets. The point that I would like to make is that that is precisely what they may lose by excessive use of the internet, especially social media. And let me qualify my statement. Most internet companies and platforms have AI engines at the back. They have people specifically geared towards making the choices for you. Their primary intent is to get you hooked on to their platform, which is taking away your freedom of time. And then they will actively engage in influencing your choices and changing your perspectives. And their motive is commercial. So their intent is to influence your choices to push the commercial products that are that people are paying for, the advertisers. My core point is that through excessive use, you are basically giving up your freedom by sharing your life with life information and data with all these people who in turn use that data to curb your freedom and to influence you. So by restricting our time and access to certain platforms, we are able to get back our freedom of choice. We are able to think. You would be able to think for yourself, get information from sources that don't have a vested interest in pushing their agenda.
That's the time check, Mr. Raja. Thank you. Thank you for your perspective. So next on from the parent team, we have Alpa Tana from Mumbai. Please, Alpa Tana, your perspective, please.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning, teens. See, myself, Alpa Tanna, I'm also a mother of 2 teens. Children, you all are very well aware of the pros and cons of using mobiles or being on screen all the time or much of the time. But these days, y'all have to be on screen because your studies are on screen. You have to chit chat with your friends through your mobile phones. But we don't want to stop you. We just want to tell you that restrict your time, maintain your timetable of using your mobile phones. Being all the time on screen will stop your cognitive development. That is the skills of visual skills, spatial skills, your reading skills. These days, children are just playing games on mobile phones. They are just meeting their friends on mobile phones. Children, try to do some physical exercise, go and meet your friends, maintain social distance, but go out and meet your friends. Don't be on screen all the time. We just want to tell you that restrict your time, maintain your timetable. That's all. We cannot stop you using that. We cannot stop you, but we just, you are very well aware of everything. What are the pros, what are the cons of using mobile phones or being on screen?
That was a time check there, Alpa. Thank you so much for your perspective. So the last one to go from the parents team is, we have Prasad from Hyderabad, please. Your perspective, please.
Hi, I'm father of 2 teenagers. I just wanted to highlight one critical point. Basically, connected to gadgets excessively would mean that you are disconnected from your family near and dear. Being connected is very important, especially to your family members. When you are in your teenagers, you would need to exchange your thoughts, opinions, your stress levels, and what is bothering you, what are your ambitions, aspirations. All that would be discussed when they are discussed in person with your parents and other family members. It has a lot of inputs to yourself, and they can be a great value add. Gadgets, be it internet or cell phone or anything, can be unidirectional information. And also it only presents one perspective, not really a 360-degree perspective. So I feel talking to people brings in a lot of balance to your thoughts while you gain a lot of knowledge from the content on the internet. So I would insist on maintaining a good balance between the time you spend with your family members as well as on the gadgets, being, the time is like, where you have to learn on the devices. So that's my advice.
Right. Thank you so much for your perspective, please. So we move to team teens, and I call upon Ananya from Chennai to bring about her perspective.
So, hello everybody. I am from Team Teens, and we are going to talk about 4 levels at which technology influences us, which is the personal level, the social level, the national level, and the global level. I will be talking about the personal level. On a personal level, technology helps us build entrepreneur skills, and it helps build perseverance in us. Have you ever heard of the word survival mode in games? This very survival mode in games helps us. What the survival mode forces us to do is build our own things. It forces the player to stay throughout the game, by building own things and outwitting other players. This very thing helps us in the real life by cutting all the roadblocks that come in our way. It helps us to persevere and go ahead in life. And also, I must say that it is our platform, our stage where we have the freedom of expression and creativity. On Instagram, on any kind of social media, we are in connect with our peer group. So, and we can utilize this very platform to show our talents. And not only that, a major reason why the teens are connected and addicted to games, I won't say addicted, it is actually an escape from reality, from the pressures of studying, of getting good marks and all that. I must say that the absence of communication and open communication between the parents and the teens is why the teens are looking for more communication, more imaginative things and happiness in these games. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ananya. I would like to have the next speaker from Team Teens. We have Vidur.
Hi guys, I'm Vidhu, and I feel that children need to have complete control over their social media and their screen time. See, if the parents have full control over what we do, then we wouldn't be able to express our actual views while we're talking, or like while we're texting, or we're posting something on social media, because we'll always have to think about what our parents will say about it. And parents need to have a level of trust in their children to know that we're not going to do things we're not supposed to do. They need to sit down and have talks with us, letting us know about the dangers of the internet and stuff. And a simple explanation from the parents is enough to make a child understand. Generally what they do is they say that you can't do it because it's wrong. I've heard it many times. And instead, if they sat down with us and told us why we shouldn't do it, we would have actually understood. If not, we'll simply be fueled by the curiosity to do exactly what we were told not to, and to find out why not. Right now we use social media to connect with our friends and family, right? In this situation where we're not allowed to leave our homes, we turn to social media to talk to our friends and see how they're doing. We even find our old friends who we lost touch with and catch up with them. Most importantly, it's a source of information for us. Like right now on these days, we barely read newspapers. I mean, only adults read the newspapers, children don't. Some things that are not covered by newspapers, or if they're reported too late, we don't find out about them until it's too late. Using social media, we know about whatever incident happens literally a couple of minutes after it happened. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Vidur. Next, we have from Team Teens, we have Toshni from Delhi, please.
Hi. Today, digital technologies are operating at great velocities. The virtual world has become a new normal, especially during this pandemic time when we are running with technology as our backbone. In this analog age, when the country is becoming all digital with digi lockers, digi screens, digi signatures, virtual superhighways, and whatnot, how are we supposed to limit our screen time? Yes, of course, we need to look into what we are accessing to, but we as future citizens need to play a role in taking our nation to the next level of digitization. India as a nation is striving hard to make its way in as a leader in digital technology. So if we confine our times, we will not be able to pick up pace with this technology. Rather, we need to spend more time on it. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thanks. I call upon Arya to table his views, please.
Yeah. So I'd first of all like to talk about what exactly limiting and controlling that children's social media and screen time means. So you can have parents who check their devices of their children, and a Pew study in 2014 found that 61% check the websites that their children are using, and then 60% check the social media profile. And apart from that, you also have parental control restrictions, which can block certain categories of websites, usually with explicit content. And you can also just physically restrict screen time by taking away the device itself. And we often see parents doing this to their children, or you can explicitly warn children not to go onto certain websites. So these immediately sound pretty excessive and impractical. And Livingstone et al., which was a study done in the UK in 2004, found out that like 90% of parents and children agree that children are more expert in using social media and the internet. And we often see that we see that children find a way to like bypass these controls that have been imposed on them. So, and then the largest concern that we find is that can I just finish my point? Yeah. So the last concern we find is that it's a breach of privacy. Essentially, you see people from like the CEOs of Apple and Google speaking in front of Congress to promote why their company is very secure and private. And essentially, when you're checking your teens' social media and trying to limit it, you're essentially also breaching their own trust and privacy. So I'd like to conclude with that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So we have heard both the teams to come together and share their views. We had the team parents talk about health is one of their concerns where they have for their children. And we also came out, Raja, saying that freedom of time and influence of technology is taking away our own decision making. So the more we spend time on gadgets, we are losing our whole decision making to technology. And Alpa said that we need to maintain a balance and develop other skills as well, and be socially connected by meeting people. Prasad said that yes, connection physically, being connected with people on a face-to-face or talking to people will definitely allow you to be more balanced. So that's from the parent side that we had. And from the teen side, they said the games is giving them a lot of learning. They said we are learning a lot. We are learning about survival. We are learning about different strategies. Of course, it is one way of escape, but we are learning. And Vidur said that it's a way to express because parents are not talking to us, and that's one best way that we could express ourselves with others. And Toshni said that we are building up the country and the country's economy, and we are moving towards a digital age. In this digital age, how can you restrict us by not using technology? We have to be using technology probably more and more. And Arya said that he came up with this point of privacy being a major concern among teenagers because parents are either being very excessive by pulling out their phones or following them on social pages. At least about 60% and more are following them. Welcome back, and we are in round two. As we move to round two, here we get to discuss what the teams had put across in the previous round. When we can go for it and we can go against it. You are all free to express your views, and there is no time restriction in this round. So I'd like to start by asking a question to the teens. We are talking about parents restricting or controlling our usage of screen time or social media presence. When and how do parents impose these restrictions on you? Anyone from teens?
Yeah, so I think I brought this up in my 1-minute speech thing. So let me just like refer back to my points. So parents like try to restrict or limit the time we spend by so in some cases I've personally experienced it where they either just disconnect the Wi-Fi or you have them just taking away your phones, right? So that's one way in which like parents try to restrict their use of children being online, or you also have like parental control where you block certain categories of websites. And I think why this is this in particular can be a little dodgy is because when you have a parental control like filter, which is filtering content online, you're also essentially blocking out a lot of important information.
But when do they come to this point? When in point do they come to start restricting you from using your gadgets? When is that, right? I understand that you're trying to say that excessive usage, they use excessive methods of holding or controlling your gadgets, or controlling you from being on social sites. But when do they come to this point to take this action?
Yeah, so in some cases it could be in when parents find out that that child has been using it excessively, or in some cases you also see that like when you have children who are growing up, and then parents say that, hey, so now I see that you're growing up and I'm going to give you a phone, but along with this phone there comes certain things, like there comes certain conditions that you must meet to be able to use this phone, right? So parents will be like, you can only use it for 2 hours a day at first, right? So that's again, you already have a time limit when as to how much you can use it. So and I think that most of the parents are attributed this to health and spoiling eyesight and stuff like that, and I agree with this. But along with that, we our team did bring up certain important points as to why we should be using our mobiles and stuff, and like making sure that we are on social media.
All right, so if I can ask the same question to team parents, maybe if I can ask Raja, so when in point then you would, come into this point of restricting your teens on usage of gadgets?
Can I go ahead?
See, we, at least in our household, I think there is no curve in the sense 2 hour, 4 hour limits, but it is through the day we just see and monitor the general activities of the children, and then see if by just gut feel whether it is going beyond what is reasonable. And also we see another way in which we indirectly try to control the time is by engineering other activities through the day for them. Like, say, for example, it could be a music class, or it could be another extracurricular activity for them to indulge in, which indirectly structures their time and restricts their activity purely online. So my personal view is that we should help the teens bring in a structure, maybe according to their own likes and interests, but somehow give them a structure for the day where indirectly anyway their time will be controlled and restricted. So that is the way I would deal with it, rather than trying to grab their device, or trying to do more direct
time
intervention.
In specific, you have any time in specific that you could say, like, okay, we could give a leeway of about 2 hours or 3 hours that they could use? Is there any recommendations that you could
I personally am not for a particular time recommendation, because it's extremely difficult to put a time and understand where they are drawing a line for doing say a homework for their school, or they are just online. So I mean, they do need to be on a social platform to discuss group discussions for classwork. Say, for example, my daughter does that, and it is very difficult for us to draw a line where the homework work has stopped and just a social interaction has started. So it's very, very difficult to try to draw a line there. So I would rather, instead of trying to put some numbers, get them involved in other activities. Like I think my teammate Prasad was talking about during our breakout session, about maybe the family doing cooking together, or maybe they doing some other activity together. So by actually engaging with the children more, I think that's a better way of controlling their time, rather than trying to actually put some strict time controls.
All right, great.
May I add a few points against this?
Please.
Yeah, what I would love to say is that as much as we are engaged, the parents are equally engaged. See, our school might start at 9 o'clock and end by 1 or 2. But the parents are equally engaged. They start at 9, they end with office at 5 or 6. Okay, so by that time, nobody communicates with each other. Okay, we are all engaged in some form of media. And I must say that where parents might be going wrong is they're linking the school time that we are spending with the time we are spending on social media. You cannot link it. On any average day, we spend, I think, a maximum of 1 hour on it, which is good, which is okay. It helps us to, rework things in mind and, just release our stress. But I must say that parents too are equally engaged in such platforms, and the time limit might not be a consideration.
All right, I'd like to ask Alpa a question. Like you are saying that children are not really developing their skills when they are mostly on online. But we also had seen that from the teens, they said that they are developing a lot of resilience and a lot of strategy and building up. It's a creative platform. How do you see that? Do you agree with that, Alpa?
See, I think Ananya told that or I don't know, but by playing games, you develop some skills. But
yes,
I find that absolutely that is not right. By playing games, you don't develop anything. You are just wasting your time, or you are just setting a mindset which is making you more aggressive. Okay, children. So I just want to tell you that why you all want to force your parents to limit your time? You by yourself, why can't you maintain a time? Why don't you keep your phones aside for some time and go and hug your parents, or meet up them, talk to them, interact with them, spend some time with them by your own? Why you want to force your parents to do that for you people? Why can't you do it by yourself? Just like how Arya told that why they want to control our time. But I think, see, y'all can learn many things out of by using your screens, but limit your times. Okay, you learn, but not by playing games. By playing games, you just entertain yourself. That is for some time. Okay, you can entertain yourself, but not for all the time. So if we don't stop you people, you will just, when you thought of keeping your phones aside and going and meeting your parents or spending some time with them, if they don't stop you to do that, if they stop you forcefully, you do that. But willingly, if you do that, that will give a lot of joy to both of you, to your parents as well as to you also. You please try to do this. This is my suggestion. Go and spend some time with your parents willingly.
Teams, somebody like to take it on?
Let me come in. Just one point I want to mention that why do parents think that we don't want to spend time with them and we are playing games? The parents can also join us in games.
Of course we join. Of
and
course.
I
play games with my kids.
The point about aggression, ma'am, I would love to say that it is not only PUBG that we play. There are so many different games with so much better, ways to play it, that you will actually enjoy it along with us. And as teens, I think we are now more aware of the time we spend on screen than the parents are. And I actually feel that we ourselves restrict our use after a point. We are like, okay, enough for the day. Let's go and do something else. Yeah,
so would like that's the point. So now there is no point of debating. If you restrict your own time of using on screen, I think
I'd like to oppose Alpa ma'am's point. I feel that the screen time should be, it should be limited, but it should not be imposed by parents. It should be self-imposed. And as for the playing games part, I feel that it's not just the sniper games that we play, though there are benefits of the sniper games as well, because it increases our reacting ability, and there are many more things. But if you say that we don't spend time with our parents because we are playing games, then I think you're wrong. I spend time with my family much more than I spend time on screen.
And if I may add on to that, game if while we play games, it actually has a creative effect on us. Like, for example, I like football a lot, so I play football games on my phone. Using that, you can make creative plays and stuff, things like that. And again, there many children do play these shooting games and war games and things like that. That also kind of helps. I mean, as much as it seems too violent and things like that, it helps too. Like Ananya said, the reaction time. Like, if something like that, say, were to happen to us in real life, we would know what to do.
And also, I feel that screen time is not just gaming, it is also about gathering information. It might be about your studies or general knowledge or something that our teacher might have asked us in school. So,
So Alba ma'am, like she said that games have absolutely no value add to us. So I'd like to like list out a couple of games, and I'd like to talk about how these games really help. So there's a first-person shooter called Call of Duty. So in this you have, so there are different player modes and stuff, but then you have a multiplayer mode where you have a map and you have a bunch of players on this map and you have to fight each other, right? So now when you have when you're put into this position of trying with an objective of killing or like winning this game, so eventually you go, first of all, as Vidar stated, you're going to start finding a creative solution to get to win this game. Second is you're going to start thinking more critically and strategically, which is building on your critical thinking and strategic thinking skills. And I also like to bring in Minecraft, which is another addition to what Vidar said, where you have creativity and survival, where you can again just encouraging creativity and stuff. So I do agree that like the developers of these games have like an ulterior motive of maximizing their profit by ensuring that they have advertisements running and that the players like maximize their screen time. Um, and this again connects to another thing I wanted to say is that uh, a lot of parents do agree that their children should like regulate themselves and like regulate their screen time by themselves. But this is very difficult when you have parents who are like trying to get involved and like regulating their children's screen time. So if, for example, if a parent doesn't get involved in how much a teen uses their phone and stuff like that, eventually they themselves will gain this feeling of responsibility. So they might have assessments or deadlines coming up, and then they themselves will realize that, oh, I can either spend time on my phone or I can spend time doing something more productive, and then they themselves will learn how to like allocate that time in a better way. Whereas if you have parents who are imposing controls and stuff, and they you never like, so you'd find that children don't actually learn to do this allocation of time by themselves.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
Sorry. Yeah, what happens is it's easier to get carried away. I'm not on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and all, but I know people who are. My friend runs an event management company. She needs to be on social media because that's how she, because of networking and making, she needs clients for her company. And there are reasons why they are on social media. But I know people who are on social media, they wake up and they go on Facebook and they just keep posting things just for the likes, and it can get to a point where they might be neglecting many things, like they may be neglecting their family also. That's the whole point. So it becomes very difficult to control. So that's the whole point. If somebody who has authority, like a parent has authority on their children, so they can set rules, like, or they both need to communicate with each other, sit down and put it on a paper, like what are you doing every day, wake up and make a list of things that you'll be doing that day and how much time you are spending on that screen time. Show it to your parent and let the parent also look at that. So that way, if both are discussing this and coming to a conclusion, that will work better actually. Because if you give them full freedom, then it's not going to work. It's easy to get carried away. Mind is like that. It's not about children. We trust them wholeheartedly. The problem is our minds, your mind may say, okay, like let me continue for another half an hour, or it may go on for 2 hours also, and then it's not going to work. So we need rules and regulations.
Can I pitch in?
Yeah, please. Arya.
There are two things here. One is time is limited in a day. Second thing is learning is maximum when you're a teenager. You have the maximum energy and you can learn the maximum when you're a teenager. Now, when you are able to balance, everything would be good. But most of the times what happens is, as Rupa ma'am said, half an hour becomes 2 hours, or 10 minutes becomes 1 hour. So in the limited time, you have to learn to meet your short-term or long-term goals in your academic career or any other personal learning you're going through. The time gets eaten away significantly. And that adds pressure onto the teenager himself because he has to cover it up somewhere else. And then he gets into a kind of avoidance mode. So I think if the balance can be brought in through some amount of discipline, by the time you spend, you can track your own time. Your parents need not have to track it. You can track your own time, what time you're getting up, what time you're sleeping, and how much learning you have to make in a day. You can take assistance from your parents, but all these balancing thing, if you can do on your own, great. But that's where I think the parent would be anxious to help you and try to bring overall, a kind of uniformity in your day. How much you're learning, how much you're, getting time to relax on a gadget or relax with your family or playing with friends. So all of them have to be balanced accordingly. I think that's where, the point of parents trying to impose some restrictions gains importance, because as a teenager, the energy you have, if it is channeled to your learning, which will help your career as well as personality development, if that can be brought in either through yourself or with the help of parents, that's where you can really excel in whatever you want.
I want to add this thing. I came across this news that in schools in China, the schools actually make their children learn how to play video games, and they teach how to code and make new games. This is essentially because technology is the next big employer. It is the entire gaming industry. It is the next big employer, and we must keep that in mind. And why do parents think that we don't learn when we are scrolling down social media? We are just expanding our interest. Suppose I love dressing up, I love fashion, for instance. So when I am on social media, I am able to gain access to world's fashion. Actually, I am able to learn so many more things. So I don't know why parents think that we don't learn when we are scrolling down social media.
Can I jump into that? Ananya, see, again, based on a lot of scientific research and many industry articles, there is very, very strong evidence that most internet platforms, including YouTube, Instagram, whatever social media that you take, they are actively engaged in pushing their advertisers or sponsors views onto the end users. My only concern is that yes, you are able to learn a lot of things by scrolling through social media. You are able to do a lot of things, but the people who are putting out information on those platforms are not having your interest in mind, or their goal is not to educate you about what is the fashion. Their goal, I only question the goal, the motive behind the action. See, their motive is not to educate you about the latest fashion. Their motive is not to educate you about what are the different options. Their motive is to sell, and their motive is vested. So that is where the problem comes. So then what they start doing is they constantly bombard you with very colored information. They give you, they try to influence you and move you towards a particular choice. They move you towards particular areas that where they can make more money. So this is where the problem comes, because of the fundamental motive behind people posting information online. And this is where we all, including parents and children, have to be very, very careful as to where we are getting our information from. See, for example, Ananya, if you are getting your fashion tips from your own friend, from a known source who you respect and who you know has your interest and your common interest, then it is perfectly great. But if you are getting fashion tips, sorry to say, from maybe Kim Kardashian or somebody else, that whoever is trying to push stuff, their motive is primarily commercial. See, they want to get more money from their sponsors. They want to get more views and in turn make money out of that. So this is where the problem comes. The fundamental the moral and the vested interest of the source of information. So as long as the source of information is unbiased and their motive is very clear, then it is fantastic. But unfortunately, most internet platforms, including the YouTubes and the Instas of the world, they are trying to have AI engines, artificial engines behind, trying to game your thoughts, and then they try to keep pushing stuff and influencing your decision. This is where the risk is. And that is where we as users need to be very, very wary about the time we are allowing them to influence us. And we have to go in search of sources which are more authentic. Somebody, I think Vidur or somebody, made a point that nowadays teenagers never really access newspapers. That's relatively unfortunate, because newspapers are, relatively speaking, again, there are huge biases in the news media as well, but there are relatively good sources of information that are unbiased. Rather, if we get news and information from unbiased sources like that, rather than trying to get information, as Trump calls it, fake news, from from people who are really trying to push their own agenda, this is the risk. And that's the point I would like to make. That's what we all need to be concerned about.
So
yeah, I'd like to make a point here. There are two things that all the teenagers I would advise to be aware of. One is what Raj sir was trying to make: known sources versus unknown sources. Your parents are very well-known sources for you. There is a lot of artificial intelligence built into the social media, which attracts you to the content which you may be curious about, but not necessarily in your own interest, because we all have a lot of curiosities. You may be just looking at certain thing because you're curious about it, but that not necessarily maybe your long-term interest or maybe your passion. But they drag you into those kind of attractions, which can continuously pump in information only in that particular area. So that is where scrolling can become an addiction versus just a learning from a social media. I mean, I'm just trying to highlight a risk that not necessarily happens all the time, but this is a big risk associated with the content on any social media.
I find
I'd like to oppose the parents' team, because I feel, first of all, the parents should set a culture of inculcating positive and good things in our mind. And then there's a freedom. I mean, freedom is a perception, and it's how we perceive it. So if you say that we take it on a wrong way, then I feel it is somewhere parents' fault as well, because they've not you know, taught us the things in the correct way. Because if they tell us, like we had discussed, they should not always be like, you cannot do this. They need to tell us why we cannot do that, why is it bad and why is it good. And then it depends, as Rupa ma'am said, I would like to say that it depends on how you use the social media. It's not just about the time you're spending on it, it's about how you use it and why you use it.
So my question is to teen parents: do you have your parents talk to you about cyber security? Is there do they sit down and have a chat with you on cyber security? And what are the safe practices that you should follow?
I think it's very ironic that most of us learn about cybersecurity online and not from our parents.
Yeah.
And I also
Yeah.
want to bring to light 2 points. I want to steer the discussion back to what Prasad sir and Raja sir were talking about. So for those who don't understand how this works is how the whole AI thing works is that you have these huge companies like Google and Facebook, and essentially they're being paid for by advertisers who and they sell to you content which is promoted by advertisers, and they have AI that's constantly studying your opinions and patterns, and they constantly force information that is like biased. So but I want to like bring out, so this problem doesn't it's not restricted to teens only. So you can, so this happens to everyone, and it's not just us, and it's not, so it could happen to like anyone who's online, and I think that's like almost everyone today. And like imposing restrictions on children's use of social media doesn't solve this problem in any way. But to solve this problem, you need to so essentially we're up against these huge companies with billions and trillions of dollars, and that's where I think government intervention comes in, where you have government intervening by taxing data and stuff like that, and that would eventually reduce how much and what these companies do with your data, and that again solves our smaller problem of parents trying to like impose restrictions on our screen time.
I fully agree with Arya. He's perfectly correct in all the points, except I would like to make just one additional point to Arya's point, which is yes, everybody, not only teens, everybody is affected and influenced by these AI engines, and all of us have to be very, very wary of how we use this technology. But just an additional point to that, but more than, I mean, this is as a parent, this is my view, is that teens are at their very early stages of understanding and creating a model in their mind of how the world works, how their life has to be structured, and how they have to create the path of their journey towards the life itself. They are at their early stages, whereas the parents who are sort of already on the other side of the hill, so to speak, the impact is far less because their minds are already wired to a certain way of looking at the world. Yes, they can be influenced and they will have an impact, but it is even more of a serious problem with the teens. So that was the only point I'd like to add to Arya's point. His point was absolutely valid, but they are more susceptible. Teens are more susceptible.
I just want to say this.
Yes.
Yeah, continue, ma'am.
The structure of structure of the brain of a teen is different from that of an adult, and how to understand teens and how they think and how they process information, how they are finding their own self, and they're trying to develop their own individuality and stuff like that. So they are actually children. From our point of view, they are children. They need guidance. So we not only screen time, we constantly guide them in many different areas as well. So that's when this happens, setting rules, or telling them this is right and that is wrong. So looking back, I feel like I'm like, we had parents who were totally involved in our lives, and I'm very thankful for that, because they really guided us and told us, how to lead a proper life and stuff like that. So that is very important as well. They, the involvement from parents' side and trying to understand them and setting rules and all are basically we do all that just to keep you guys safe, nothing else, so that you are safe and you are doing the right thing, and because you are building your future. This is the time when you should be building your future. So you shouldn't be wasting your time or anything. Yeah, that's the only thing.
I think
this comes back again to how you have, and I must say, when the child turns 13, when we come into the teenage years, that is exactly the time when we are forming our own opinions, you know, and be it influenced by anybody, be it the social media, be it the parents, newspapers, we have our own opinions all the time. Everybody has it. So what social media, like Raja sir was saying, and I think somebody else also mentioned that that reliable sources do not provide us information. I would like to add this: when we are interested in something specific, we always read up more about it, right? So, if we find some information, we will always ask people, we always talk to others, we'll always Google more to know if this info is right or wrong. So, in that sense, I must say that it is not bad, it is not feeding us wrong information. No, it is just for
I would like to add
providing opinions.
that we are in our initial ages of becoming an adult. That's why I feel we are called teens and not children. So we kind of understand what is right and what is wrong. And there's always a particular age when we start understanding, and when we most probably we understand a thing. Even if our parents tell it to us, we won't be able to understand until that age comes. And as for the wrong sources, I feel that's why we filter stuff and we personalize the things and the ads on Google, Insta, YouTube, and other social media platforms.
Please go
I'd
on.
like to
Yes,
just
yes.
add one more point, going down one level deeper from the sources of information. A lot of the content on internet is fake, whether we believe it or not. More than 50% of the content is not verified. When I say fake, not
Yeah.
verified. So that is the risk teenagers are inviting by going through a lot of information online. I agree with Raja Garu in terms of what we, as parent, we have already gone through the cliff. Okay, we have gone through our set of learning. We have seen various personalities, but as a teenager, if you are bombarded with a majority of information which can be fake, the risk of that becoming a reality for the teenager is much, much grave compared to what is the influence on an adult, a fully grown adult. So I think that's where the teenagers have to really filter down more aggressively the information they see, and also try to use trusted, verified sources. Even you take Google, a lot of the information that throws up on Google is not fully verified again. So with be it scientific data or life skills or personality development skills or religious data, all of these have to be fully verified before it can become part of your life.
Vidur, would you like to take on, please?
Yeah, can I? Yeah. So until the last decade or the last couple of decades, there's not been that many technological advancements. So like since the 2000s or the late 90s, from then there have been many technological advancements. So what Prasad sir and Raja sir was saying is they've already learned what they had to learn, and they climbed over the hill, right? As Raja sir said. But what I'm saying is we teens like in this era are on a completely different hill. The world is different from how it was then. So we will be going through a different type style of learning. Yeah.
I feel that Prasad sir was right, but that's why we should be told how to filter and not to do this or that. And after every generation, there's a different chain that comes up. So parents cannot always be right with their children when it comes to their generation.
And not only that, the problem of the right information, we can never claim an information is right, because any information is an opinion. I feel, it's somebody's word against somebody else's. So, the right kind of information, and as teens in the 21st century, we as teens actually know what information might be right and what is wrong, because we are already influenced by so many opinions on social media itself, that we are able to structure something in our mind. Okay, this is right and this is wrong. That I must say.
I'd like to add that in life skills, when I say life skills, dealing with people, when you grow up and you would have your own life partner, dealing with people is the most important aspect. Dealing with people can only be learned from people is what I feel, rather than from online platforms. The most effective learning is from people, be it your parents or friends or anyone in close circles. Those influence your thoughts a lot, and they also help you understand diverse personalities, diverse situations, as well as deal with the unknown factors. I feel the information on online can be unidirectional. I don't say it's not a 360-degree view all the time, but it can be unidirectional. It cannot be a complete perspective like a human can give. I think that's where a teenager should little bit be more careful in terms of more. The balance should tilt more towards human interactions than interactions online.
Sir, I would like to add this point that in lockdown, I realized one thing. We as humans are called social animals. And as humans, we will never go out of communicating with each other. Okay, this lockdown has forced this fact into our mind that as humans, as people, uh, we have to communicate with each other, so that you need not worry about. Where the problem comes is when the parent is not able to understand the child and the child is not able to understand the parent. What we must do is, why we actually resort to social media, to games, is because the absence of a good communication, an open communication with the parents on all everything, no, on all matters of the world. If that is absent, that is why we go to games, games, social media, where we can actually see other people with the same ideas that we have.
I agree with you totally, Ananya, where the time spent between parents and children is a common activity irrespective of the interest. It becomes very effective time compared to a unidirectional. Some parents trying to impose or children not connecting with the parent. It can be both ways. So I agree with you totally. Where the parents are able to spend time and the children are also able to spend time with the parents, that's where the activities can be controlled. Even for parents too, like a lot of the parents are addicted to social platforms today, like children. So the more time you spend together, and the more you do things together. Like I mentioned in our breakout session, I do cooking with my children and what they like. I ask them to come and you know cook something which they like to eat. So same thing happens with me. I would like them to help me in what I'd like to eat. So it becomes a group activity. So that's how I feel some of these can be mitigated.
Yeah, I understand what Ananya is trying to say, because there was a time when I was in this cold country, it was a very cold place. Days together, I would go, without seeing others except my own family. So the only thing that came to my rescue was communicating with with everybody back home. So that's when internet came to the rescue. I could exchange emails and I could talk to them, and I was using, but I was not a teen or anything. So I knew how much to do and how much time I could spend on the computer or whatever. So it really helped me those days, talking to my family back home and speaking to my friends and other colleagues. And it really helps you, because if you don't have that human touch, either on phone or a computer, it's going to be very difficult. You need to
And
speak to somebody that way, like the
I
way
would,
we are doing right now. That is very important, but how to regulate is how much of what we can do. That's when.
Many a times
I would,
parents are also wrong and they're not able to teach us everything. I mean, not properly cooking, but started working in kitchen. And my mother never taught me how to work in kitchen. I learned it from YouTube. So I feel it's not that bad. And how can, I mean, we can never say that parents are always right, because it's humans who make mistakes, right? So it's not that parents can always teach us the right thing. Many a times it's our friends, our teachers, our sometimes it's social media as well. So
I agree with you, Toshani. It's not also about learning; it's about doing things together. That's the most critical piece of a healthy family being moving forward. Learning is a side effect of it, I must say. Media has, I mean, the technology is a great tool to learn, but it also can be a great tool to evolve as a human being. When I say human being, I mean, ultimately we're all social animals. As you said, we can't be away from others. But the thing what we are realizing now is forcefully. We are in a situation where forced for it, but otherwise we wouldn't have realized. Imagine if we didn't have this lockdown, would we have realized the value of people and relations, talking to people so effectively? Not necessarily. Why do we have to get into such situation? That's the thing,
I
right?
don't feel that is completely true. Look, I spend time with my mother, father, and my nanu as well. He's not staying with me, but I spend time with him as well. I play games with him on phone, and can you believe it? He calls me many a time saying that, "Why aren't you playing? Why aren't you sending me the code? I want to play with you. I want to spend time with you." So it's also a mode of spending time with each other.
I wanna talk about communication and interaction. So a lot of parents brought up interaction as and like human interaction as a very like important point, and I think and they feel that social media doesn't allow for that to happen fully. But I want to talk about social interaction platforms like Reddit and stuff. And I have a study which was conducted in the UK, which basically looked at patterns of how it surveyed experiences of young people and their parents online, and what they found out was that on social media, on social interaction sites like Reddit. So Reddit is basically a site where uh, like each one has an account, and you can basically post something, and you can like ask for advice, and like others can like help, and like, you can either post photos, but also you also see a lot of conversations and interactions going on pertaining to specific groups and communities. So there are specific groups and communities with their own objectives. Like topics which were discussed on these platforms. So children were asked what topics they discuss on social interaction platforms, and I want to use statistics to show that most of these topics that they do discuss on social interaction platforms are usually topics that they don't think or they might not feel comfortable discussing with parents. So the highest is school or work, which is like 55% of children who agreed to using social interaction platforms to discuss or seek advice on future work. And the second one is health. And then so these are normal, but then after that is when it gets a little interesting, because you see that these are typically topics.
Arya, you need to come closer to the mic, please.
Yeah. So certain issues are what parents children wouldn't find comfortable discussing with parents. So you have alcohol, drugs, and smoking, which 24% of teenagers seek advice on social interaction platforms. Next is relationships, sex and pregnancy, money problems, family problems, and coming out like coming out and like talking about their sexuality. So what you see is that most of these issues are something that teenagers wouldn't really find like they wouldn't be comfortable discussing this. Most teenagers wouldn't be comfortable discussing this with their parents, and social like platforms provide like an important it's basically an important platform where they can voice out their opinions and get help or seek advice. And yeah.
I'd like to bring in Arundhati here, please. So to to take on what Arya had said, that children are not very comfortable talking to their parents.
We teenagers have our own mentality. We want to discuss something with our parents, but their mentality being different, they don't completely understand what we are trying to say and what we are trying to ask. So it actually becomes kind of confusing, and it becomes a barrier. The mentality becomes a barrier, and the many a times it's the age that becomes a barrier, because every time you cannot remember what you've been through at your age, but the one who's going through will understand it better. I have a friend who changed her school. She had problems in her school, but her mother and her parents never understood it, and she was all alone crying, and she could not seek anyone, so she used social media platform to do it.
Yes, Arundhati, please.
Yes, so to answer your question, Rex, there are many reasons why children don't feel comfortable talking to their parents. Yes, and I think Toshani brought out some of those very significant reasons. So, having listened to all of the conversations that have been going on, it does seem like teens are wanting their parents to trust them, but that trust builds only when there is an open communication. I'm hearing a lot of this. We want our parents to talk to us. We want them to guide us. We want them to mentor us. We want them to be supportive of us. Parents are also very, very concerned about keeping their children safe in many ways. But there seems to be a gap between the two. So parents want to keep their children safe. They want them to, stay on track with all of their responsibilities, etc. Teens say, we know our responsibilities, trust us. However, we still want you to be, guides to us and to be supportive. So what is that gap? Perhaps parents may not know how to communicate what their concerns are, because I heard earlier, because parents have authority, so we are the best persons to guide our children. Our parents have experience, so we know a lot. Absolutely true. But I think that how the communication happens seems to be that little gap that needs to be bridged between parents and teens.
Right, great. So we move into the last few minutes of our debate. If you have any rebuttals that you would like to take on with the opponent teams, you may do so, please.
So I would like to say, Toshani, you told that parents you cannot open up with your parents, and you tell that parents don't trust you. I would like to say that you should also have full trust on your parents. And these days, I think parents are absolutely of modern thoughts, and they would like to hear from you rather than you going and telling your problems to the third person. I would like to say that only your parents are your well-wishers, and you should trust them first. You should take the first try to tell them, discuss your problems with them rather than going to any third person or rather than going on social media. This is only my point.
The only reason that children go to social media or to another person is so that they won't be judged. We're always afraid of being judged by people. So since
Your parent, bacha,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but your parent will never judge you, bacha.
Yeah.
Your parent is the only person who will never judge you. There are lots of people outside the world who will always keep on judging you, but your parent will never do that. You should have full trust on your parent.
That's
Ma'am, it is possible that it is not possible. It is 100% that we trust our parents. But where we actually step back is that how to tell the parent. It might not be, maybe until some time you have been seeing your parent as an authoritative figure, who will scold you for the wrong things. And if you say something wrong, or if you even ask a wrong query to them, they might say something else to you. So at that point, when we come into the teenage, we don't know how the parent will revert. Someone who till now you have been seeing as a very, scary figure. Now we don't know how to tell them what is in our mind, if it is right, if it is wrong.
When we enter the teenage years, we relate to them on a different level than we did earlier. So the way we tell them is the problem here.
Actually, I think that I am the best friend of my daughters, and I tell them that whenever they always open up with me for any kind of problem, and I never judge them in the wrong way. So I think there is no problem between me and my daughters on this point.
Even I feel I talk to my mother a lot. I mean, I am very open with her more than anyone, any of my friends or family. I'm open with my mother. But there's this thing called interpreting things. It's how she interprets it and maybe how I want her to think about it. That's what when the problem comes.
I would love to say that my mother is, me and my mother are more friends than mother and daughter, But I actually remember making the first step and suppose telling I think I was 11 or 12 when I told her this. But I remember telling her that I like this boy in the class, and that was the first step towards the beginning of a more friendlier conversation than a parent-child conversation. So if parents give off that, aura or this thing that, okay, yeah, now we are friends more than we are children and parent, then I think there is always a middle way to communicate.
Yeah, so the communication is all about the way that they react to what we say. Like Ananya just now said, if I told my mom that I like the girl, then she would be happy. She would be like, oh, that's so cool. Tell me all about her. Things like that.
But what I find that we're doing right now is we're grossly generalizing the reactions of a lot of people. So this might be true for like each of you, right? But when you take it into a larger
Yeah.
context where like you can't really generalize in that way, and like each person's reactions or each person's relationship with their parents might be different, might be like it might be influenced by a lot of things, so like that context and a lot of things. So I don't think we should generalize it in that way, because that provides a very focused and a narrow like view.
I agree with Arya, and I would like to say that uh, even I'm like Ananya, that I talk to my mother about things my friends tell me don't share it with anyone, and I'm like, mom, do you know what? She did this and she doesn't want to tell anyone. But the thing is that how each parent deciphers and perceives it, because my mother thinks of it in a different way than generally parents do, and that's where I say that I don't have problems with my mother and I won't mind socializing with her. And that's when I realize that social platforms are not everything, but that's not the point with every children and every teenager. So social platforms act as a savior many a times, so we cannot say that screen time is not bad.
Totally. I would love to add to this point because I've also seen parents that cut down all social media. They cut down all communication with their children. I've seen parents who are stricter than ever, who are like, you score marks, that's all we need, and nothing else. And I've seen such parents also. And I hear the main reason why I know this is because the children share it with us, the friends, on social
Yeah.
media, so, and social media is actually a big platforms like Reddit and all. There are actually discussion groups there, that act as mental relief for children stuck in situations like this.
Okay, I would like to add something. Most of us are fortunate, but there are children who are, in such situations. What they could do is find a role model, find somebody who they find is perfect. Or, it not Bollywood stars, and I'm not talking about that kind of role model. It could be in your own family, an uncle or aunt or a teacher in your school who is very kind to you. Or find somebody who could really, give you that guidance, and you feel, okay, this person is so fatherly, or this lady is so motherly. Let me, if you could do that within your family, you might have mouses and like grandmothers and somebody who could give you that kind of support. Teens need a lot of emotional support and understanding. That is, we know all that. But yeah, some kids are very unfortunate that way. So they have to find somebody themselves. Because on social media, we don't know what kind of people are commenting and typing. They are monsters, they are faceless people, right? We don't know them at personal level. We cannot share information so openly, like, look, I have a problem. And who knows who is typing? We don't know all that. So it's a huge risk kids might be taking. So it's better to find somebody in their own safe circle. But teachers are actually kind. They look like monsters. They scream sometimes, but they're going to. Most of them are really kind. I had teachers like that, so I know. And I don't know about Budhu is nodding. I don't know whether he agrees with me. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm nodding. I'm nodding.
No, my teachers really, I had some teachers, so I really miss them so much.
I have a feeling you're contradicting your own point. A little earlier, Alpa ma'am was saying that we shouldn't go to a third person and we should always go to our parents. And right now, you're suggesting the same thing.
No, because if your parent is not there for you, if some parents, I know because I lived in, I lived outside India, and so I know parents who are alcoholics and they have other issues. They have, two husbands and three wives, and they have issues that they are dealing with. And kids are like, where do I go today? Weekend, where do I spend my weekend? There are situations like that. India is not like that, it's not so complicated yet. But what I'm saying is, if there is a problem like that, and you go to your mother and she's not responsive, and you go to your father and he is busy, it becomes very difficult. So you have to find somebody, a mentor at school, or a counselor, or somebody who could give you that free advice and say, oh, yes, child, talk to me and I'll help you with this.
But social media has actual platforms where they discuss such things, by proper authorized people,
Yes,
who
I know.
actually provide such information.
Yes,
And
very true. Because yes, I agree with Ananya. Because we have this Bhagavad Gita group where there are people who are really authorized. People who have studied a lot. They, from spiritual perspective, also they give solutions to many people, and it's very nice. We see a lot of children involved in that too. So that is true.
And ma'am, not only that, the point you were saying about the role model, it is much more easy to follow your role models, your dreams on social media than actually, like social media acts as a platform to connect you with your role model. Suppose somebody's role model is Barack Obama. So social media is that exact platform which might connect you with him, which might see what your ideas are and why would you want to become like him. That is what social media is.
Other social media is not just about socializing on internet. It's also about influencing. If we get influenced in the correct way, I don't think that it is a bad thing, because like Ananya said earlier, that she uh, is interested in learning fashion. So, and someone said that fashion cannot be just learned by that, because they say it by the motive of selling it. We don't want to just buy it. We want to get ideas how to make our own fashion. We want to make our own fashion sense by getting influence from there. So it's not just about socializing with people, asking opinions. It's also about getting the correct influence, what we are interested in.
Great, Toshni. Thank you so much. So we had both the teams come up and share your perspectives. What is really concerning for you, as well as what we have to look in for. And we agreed some points, some of them we didn't agree. And I would like Ms. Arundhati to give us the overall perspective of what we have discussed and put it in the right format. Yes.
Thank you, Rex. Yes, I'd like to start off by saying that this discussion or debate has, thrown up so many valuable points, both from the point of view of parents as well as the teens. And each one is right, so right in their own ways. As I said earlier, it's about how do we bridge that little gap that exists between what parents want for their children and what children already have in them, the skills, the knowledge, the discretion, the ability to discern and to know where to draw that line for themselves. So what I've been hearing from the teens is that trust us on this. We know because you have taught us in so many ways. Yes. On the other hand, we have parents who are still very concerned because it's a genuine concern out there. There is a lot going out on social media, which can be scary, which is risky. And somewhere the parents are holding on to that fear and communicating to their children through that fear. And perhaps when we communicate through fear, what really comes across to children is that, oh, you know, we are being judged, or they don't understand, or they're just advising us. What teens are really saying is, talk to us. And as some of the teens here said, I am able to talk to my parents, but not everyone has that, you know, that ability within their family to have those open communications for whatever reasons. But the point teens are making is that we want you to be there in our lives, very much in our lives. Parents don't know how much to be in their lives, so sometimes they are perceived as being intrusive, and sometimes teens are perceived as being too independent or taking you know, too much into their hands because they don't yet know much as they need to about the world, or they may not have the necessary skills that are required to navigate all of these you know, perceptible risks that do exist on social media. So what we're also hearing is from the teens is that social media has so many benefits. But what was a little worrisome, I would say, is that many teens seem to be turning to social media because they don't have that comfortable access to parents. So I think the message that's going out to parents is to be there for their teens, but to also know how to approach teens. And one of the best ways is to set aside advice, set aside all the fears that we have, and focus on the teen and say, tell me more about it. Or if your teen is a lot on social media, rather than saying, stop getting into social media so much, tell me what keeps you so interested in social media. Maybe I could learn a thing from you, because when you open up that communication, then teens are more willing to share, because then the thought is, hey, my parents are pretty open about listening to what I do, and they seem to be interested. On the other hand, teens, when parents do not know or do not come across as being open, sometimes parents need a little help from teens because of the fears that they have. I think the fears is what is blocking most of the open communication with teens. So if you can actually, as teens, tell your parents, let's sit and have a chat about whatever it is that you want to talk about, and understand that your parents have fears, and your goal in those conversations would not be to convince them that what you're doing is fine, but to help them get over those fears. And one of the best ways to do it is to share with them what information you have, what knowledge you have. Tell them with concrete examples. You know, when I was playing this game, or when I was interacting on a social media platform, I came across this situation, but I knew where to draw that line for myself and give them that concrete example. Because when parents see that you are actually implementing some of your own skills to monitor yourself safely on social media, that becomes very solid proof for them. And that helps them build that trust in teams, right? So it's not always about who is going first. Usually parents dive in first. So what we need is cues from teens. If teens can give their parents cues and, you know, and start off these conversations. And also when you feel that your parent is not understanding or is becoming judgmental, what happens to a teen? You just shut down because it's upsetting. But if you could just, you know, tell yourself, okay, my parent is having a difficult moment here. Let me just give it a couple of seconds or minutes. And then if you can talk to your parent and say, yeah, I know you're so afraid, or I know you're worried, tell me more about your worries. So when parents share their worries and anxieties, it helps teens to become more empathetic about parents and vice versa as well. So it's all about, working towards having those open conversations and listening to each other and working things out together rather than each one taking a very separate stand and then letting that impasse just remain as that gap which actually prevents that communication that happens between parents.
Right. Thank you so much, Arundhati. So on a wrapping note, I would like each one of you to say just one point which you have taken up from the other team members, right? So when I say the team, the opponent team, it's just one point as a wrapping point, and then we will go on for a close.
Yes, the point I noted is teens like to interact with us as much as we want to interact with them, and communication, basically empathizing with each other and communication. I think that's the word. That's my takeaway. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Rupa.
What I took away from this was that we need to start spending more time with our parents. And it's not as bad as it sounds. I'm pretty sure it'll be really fun. Even something small like a family game night once a week, for a full evening of just fun with parents and our whole family. Yeah.
Nice.
Very, very good, Vidhu. If you are thinking this way, then it's absolutely this debate worked out well. And so, like how ma'am said, we don't need to do tug of war. We need to get connected with each other.
One of the action items as a parent I have is to be talking to more on contemporary items, what bother them in that age, and what really where I can really pitch in or listen to, and see if I can get any help from myself or from others, so that they can be more self-sufficient.
I have learned that we should be responsible and we should try to communicate with our parents as much as possible. And spending family time is the most important thing.
Right, great.
I would love to thank all the parents. I realize that it is a trying age, and the parents are also scared that in some years we'll be going off to colleges and all that. So we must put away our gadgets for a little time, or find some common point to bond over and ignore our differences. Just bond over a point where, we just enjoy communicating with each other. That's all.
So my key takeaway is that parents, they've shared their stereotypes or what their notions are on social media and technology, and us children also have certain opinions on how parents feel about certain things, and as Arundhati ma'am said, that bridging that gap might need some either one of the parties to start off and give cues or something, and essentially when you and as everyone else said, that essentially when you start communicating, that gap is slowly bridged. So yeah.
My key takeaway today is just looking at the team's participants gives me great comfort and understanding as to how much very aware and knowledgeable and responsible they are, and to a large extent does address the fear factor that Arundhati madam talked about, and it does help me as a parent reduce my fear factor of their interactions with social media, purely based on how clear the team is in terms of what they are wanting and what they are aware of, and the risks that they are aware of, and how they are able to self police and monitor themselves. So that gives me great comfort, and it is a very big takeaway for me as well. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much for being here. We wrap up this session from here. Thank you.